Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. And today I just got back from a league challenge, which I ended up winning with Azul's Charizard EX deck from Toronto. There was like one change in the list, but it's basically the same as what he played to Toronto. Because this tournament was still in the Obsidian Flames meta. We were not able to play with Paradox Rift cards yet because it hasn't been 2 weeks since the set release. That's next weekend. So we were stuck playing in the old format. And I wasn't even going to go. I was thinking about it. I was like, do I really want to go play in a format that I don't care about anymore now that we're all into the Paradox Rift content? But I decided to pull up. I didn't really have anything better to do. I was like, I'll go. Why not? I was kind of in the mood to play some Pokemon. So I didn't know what I was going to play. I was going to play Lugia V-Star originally, and I just was like, nah, Lugia kind of sucks, in my opinion. After my Toronto Roma Lugia, which this is going to be one of those like mini tournament report videos that I usually post on the channel when I, get CP at a regional. But since Toronto I didn't do too well at, I decided to just do one for this league challenge that I ended up winning because I got CP at it. So it makes up for not doing a video for Toronto. But yeah, so I ended up just last minute deciding to pick Charizard. I was like, Charizard is probably like a perfect play for this. I think it's a really good deck. I don't think it was going to be too popular at this tournament. I expected a lot of Gardevoir and a lot of Lost Box and Miraidon at this tournament, which I thought Charizard's probably pretty good against. Or at least I know how to play this deck at least. Because it also makes up for the one time I played a Charizard deck to my locals, and my first 3 mounds were against Tina, Shempao, and Venomoth Spidops. So it's like, I wanted to run it back. I feel like the deck is really, really strong if you play right. It actually, I called it Chessard tonight, because it kind of plays like chess. When the deck sets up, and you have the Pidgeot in play, and you're kind of just, every turn, Pidgeotting for whatever card you need, you're kind of like playing chess. It's kind of cool, actually. So this is Azul's 60 almost. The reason why there's no Radiant Charizard in the deck, there's a Radiant Alakazam instead of a Radiant Charizard, is because I didn't have one on me. I lent a Charizard to my friend yesterday at my locals, and he forgot to give it back to me. So unfortunately, I didn't have a Radiant Charizard on me, and I didn't want to go out of my way to buy another one. So I was like, you know what? Let's just put Alakazam in the deck. Because, to be fair, it's actually good against Gardevoir. On the turn that they load up a Reversal Energy Shining Arcana Gardevoir against you, as long as there's 20 damage somewhere else on the board, you can knock them out. You can also just, like, surprise the opponent. In Best of 1, specifically, Alakazam can win you a game against Guardy. It's also good against Lost Box, where when they attack you with Dragonite, you can go Alakazam plus Choice Belt to kill the Dragonite. If your opponent hasn't taken any prizes yet, and you're still doing 180 with Charizard, because when you're playing against Lost Box, the player will always try to attack with Dragonite before they've taken a prize card, so that they can, knock it KO'd by the Choice Belt. Charizard that does 210 damage. But yeah, list felt pretty good. I think every card, in the deck was extremely powerful tonight. The Entei V is really good. I think Entei's better than Pidgeot V. I think Pidgeot's cute. Pidgeot definitely has its uses. It can take itself off the board. It isn't a liability, but Entei's just really good because it's just a really strong attacker. And Entei won me a lot of games. Every game I attacked with Entei, I won. Well, obviously I went 6-0, but you get my point. Entei was one of the best cards in the deck, and I definitely would not cut it at all. I think it's better than Pidgeot. Just the early aggression that it has is really good. It's good against Miraidon, too. Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's really good in this deck, and I would not cut it at all. Yeah, this is the 60. The Alakazam is cool. I mean, if you want to play Radiant Charizard, you probably should. I think Charizard's obviously better than Alakazam, but I didn't have one, so I just played Alakazam instead. Alakazam could also be a Radiant Serena, or it can be like a Vengeful Punch. Second Mew also wouldn't be terrible either. Because what I found, my opponents were making me go first, which is annoying. You want to go second with this deck. So, like, a second Mew could be good if you just want to. It has a higher chance of starting with a Mew, so then you can, like, use it to find VIP if you go first. But yeah, we'll talk about my matches here real quick. Again, a bit of a mini term report here. So yeah, round 1, I was up against Miraidon. So yeah, I hit Miraidon round 1. Hit my friend Keenan on Miraidon, longtime friend of mine. The first time I think we played in over a decade, so it's kind of cool to play him again. He was playing Miraidon, and the game was pretty straightforward, I would say. I think every time, it was just back and forth, 2 for 2. Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. He had like a turn where he like Raichu'd me. I think he might, I forget already, but he might have like Judge Path me, and I was able to dry out of it. Yeah, the Miraidon matchup is pretty good. Or not, well, it's pretty good. Like, I'll be honest, I think the Miraidon matchup is actually not bad. If the Miraidon deck doesn't, like, draw the bananas against you, and, like, they don't go, like, Judge Path, turn 1 attack, which is not as likely as you might think. Because every time you make Miraidon go first, I win the coin flip, Miraidon goes first, so that I get to play the game and do VIP and Arven and stuff. But yeah, the Miraidon matchup's not that bad. If you just set up Charizards, it's really hard for Miraidon to get through Charizards, which is good. And you have like Iono, which can be good if you want to disrupt them. And then round 2, I was up against a Turbo Lost Box deck. I'm pretty sure there's no Kyogre. Turbo Lost Box is also a good matchup. It just comes down to whether, like, how well you time your penny. Like, if you're able to time your penny, the matchup's pretty good, I would say overall. The penny is very good. It's actually the most broken card in the deck, in my opinion. Like, of all the cards in the deck, penny wins you more games than it loses you games. It is so, so good. Because against Lost Box, you can use penny with Entei early on. You can use it to recover your Lumineon. You can use it to even like pick up a Pokemon that your opponent's trying to set up a multi-KO with Sableye. You can also unboard lock yourself, which is good. Penny is just very powerful, and it's how I won round 2 against Turbo Lost Box. I also just was at a point where my board was like double Charizard, Pidgeot, Manaphy. I had an Alakazam on my bench. Alakazam's actually good against Lost Box, not just because Dragonite, just because it's also a Pokemon Sableye struggles to knock out. So you can just have it on your bench, and it just sits there and basically just chills. Like, it doesn't. Your opponent can like Sableye it, they won't knock it out. So it's like it's a pretty nice like echoing horn block card. Is the best way to describe the Radiant Alakazam in this deck. It felt good to have in that matchup. It just kind of sat there and did nothing, which was kind of funny. Then round 3. I was up against another Miraidon. This Miraidon deck was a little different than the other one. This one had a Zapdos V in the deck and Magnezone V-Star, which I was fine with. The Zapdos V was scary because I was like, oh, if I prize Manaphy, I could lose the game, which I didn't prize Manaphy. But I did misplay in the game. There was a turn where I just immediately went for the Charizard EX to aggressively attack with Entei, because I had Entei Belt in hand. I could KO the active Raikou V with a Bravery Charm on it. So I like immediately went for the Rare Candy Charizard play. But looking back, I should have went for Pidgeot instead. I had the ability to get Pidgeot instead, which I think the Pidgeot might have also got me Charizard, so I kind of messed that up there. A little bit of sequence error on my end. And I could have lost because of it, because the whole game I was struggling to find supporter cards, and I couldn't get a second Charizard in play. I was basically trying to win the game with one Charizard, but there was a point in the game where my opponent didn't had a full bench, and they bench locked themselves out of being able to play Raichu. So they just promoted Zapdos, and I just like passed for 2 turns. Because if I KO the Zapdos in the active, which wasn't the Zapdos, the Pogo Zapdos, I should say, the Pokemon Go Zapdos, not the EX, the Pokemon Go Zapdos was stuck in the active. So I just like passed for 2 turns in a row, and actually I just was able to build up a checkmate hand because of it. Which I could have lost if they had an Iono again or a Judge. So it was actually a pretty close game. I actually definitely could have lost that if I maybe, didn't not. If I went for the Pidgeot instead of the aggressive Charizard early on, I actually could have won that game guaranteed, but it was definitely scary because like the one Charizard was like pretty bad. But once they like couldn't bench Raichu, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna knock out your Zapdos. I'm just gonna leave you board locked until I can get another Charizard in play, because it was a struggle. And then let me see here. So round 4 was against a Charizard Mirror. I had to write down my rounds. I already forget. Bro, just the age, I'm telling you. Yeah, round 4 is against Zardmir. This was one thing I was kind of dreading. The Zardmirs are really boring. It reminds me a lot of the Arceus V-Star mirrors back in the day. And I actually don't think the Zardmir is that bad if you're able to set up. So my opponent made me go first, which is correct, obviously, because the Zardmir is basically just a game of chicken as to who takes the first, whoever takes the first knockout. Essentially, it's a game of chicken. And this was such a game of chicken. My opponent just kept passing over and over again. I just built up the Charmeleon, and I took a knockout with Charmeleon. I did have to use the Charmeleon alongside. The Charmeleon does 90 damage, by the way, for 3 energy. I had to use it alongside going Rare Candy Pidgeot and Rare Candy Charizard in order to attack with it, in order to take the first knockout. But basically, I'd use that with an Iono, so my opponent basically wouldn't hopefully draw the nut. They had to draw like Rare Candy, Boss, Charizard, Pidgeot. Like there was no way they're gonna pull all that off, and obviously They didn't get that off of an Iono. So I took the first knockout with Charmeleon, which forced my opponent in an awkward spot, because I took the first prize, right, with a 1-prizer, which is really good. And that's basically, I think, how you play the mirror. You try to take a knockout with a 1-prizer, and you try to hope your opponent can't take 2 prizes. I think, actually, in mirror, you just do not play Entei or Lumineon if you can. If you can avoid benching Entei or Lumineon, it's actually really good, because I won the game because the Entei was in play, because it's such an easy knockout for the Charizard. It's like my win was basically KO. I think it was an active Charmander with my Charmeleon, and then they went Entei, or maybe when Iono they did boss me. But either way, the point is, my Charmeleon did live. But yeah, they bossed or whatever. They hit with Entei. Entei doesn't one-shot Charizard. Say I hadn't taken any prize yet, and obviously I can't one-shot them because they hadn't taken a prize. So I just bossed up a Charmander, knocked it out, and I was up 2 prizes before my opponent killed a Charizard, right? And then they killed the Charizard with the Entei, and then I knock out the Entei with my next Charizard. And then at that point, they can't one-shot me. So all I have to do is hit the Charizard boss for game, and I had checkmate in hand where I had boss in hand and Pidgeot in play. So if they Iono me, I win. If they boss Pidgeot, I win anyways. So it was game no matter what. And if they ever put a Pidgeot EX in play at that point, I also would have won the game because my opponent had 2 prizes left. But I don't think I was ever losing that game. Or they had 3 prizes. It was something like that. Either way, I wasn't losing the game because I was able to just easily KO the Charizard because I took a 2 prize lead before they got a knockout. So the mirror match is definitely interesting. It's kind of annoying, not gonna lie. It's not the greatest like fun time ever, but it does really come down to how you play with your attackers. This is where maybe having the Charmeleon that does 70 damage for 2 would have been kind of cute. It would have been nice to be able to like, hit for 70 damage against the Mew for 2 energy, because I just go attack, and then take a knockout if my opponent's not taking the first prize on their end, because I don't want to walk into Charizard's extra damage for the mirror match. But yeah, that's just kind of how the mirror goes, I guess. Then round 5 was against a Lost Box deck. This one I thought I was cooked for sure. So they made me go first. Again, like, the opponents knew what they were doing. They're like, you're going first. I'm like, no, I want to go second. Yeah, I went first, and I didn't get a Battle VIP turn 1. I started with Charmander, Entei, and like Lumineon. I started Lumineon. So I literally opened with Lumineon, which was my only basic. So I was like, oh crap. And I had a bricky hand. Top decked Arven, and I got Entei and Charmander because I was gonna get a Pokemon. I was gonna get Charmander Pidgey. But I was like, if my opponent Greninjas me, the game's over. So I have to get an Entei and just hope that my opponent doesn't Greninja me so I can play the game. So I got an Entei, and my board the entire game, no joke, was Lumineon V, Entei V, Charizard EX. That was my board. I literally did not bench any other basic. That was my entire board. And keep in mind, I was basically just sitting there without a Pidgeot. I won that game without a Pidgeot, which was crazy. Basically, the reason I won the game is because the turn I played in Iono, I drew the penny, and I wasn't in Roxanne range, so my opponent just spit the Entei because they couldn't knock it out any other way. So they spit the Entei with the Cramorant, and I just pennied it, and the game was over because my opponent didn't have Dragonite anymore. The Dragonite was in the Lost Zone. It was like the first card they Lost Zoned, so the Dragonite was in the Lost Zone. There was a Sableye in the Lost Zone too, I think. So my opponent was like down 2 main attackers. They just spit my Entei, and I just pennied the Entei. They had a Raikou V on board, but keep in mind, so I just like pennied the Entei, and I had a Lumineon in play with 110 on it, and then I had the Charizard in play too with no damage on it. So it was pretty straightforward. I just go knockout Charizard, and then I had 3 prizes left to take, and I just didn't bench anything because the only way they can knock out Charizard theoretically was with Dragonite, but Dragonite was in the Lost Zone. I basically played around Kyogre because my only Pokemon I played was Lumineon, and my opponent I don't think they took a prize. So then, yeah, they roped, and then I gave them Lumineon. They killed Raikou, and it was checkmate. So the guy basically won. I had boss in hand too. To kill the Raikou. So it was somehow I won that game with 3 V Pokemon in play. One of them being Lumineon, and because I had Penny, Penny's really good. Penny is so good against Lost Box. It is just ridiculous how good it is. And once again, Entei showing that it is better than Pidgeot, as without the Entei, I would not have won that game because it allowed me to attack without needing to get Charizard because I was unable to do anything because my board was so weak because I just couldn't get VIP turn 1. And then finals time, I played against my friend Dennis playing Lost Zone Kyogre. And yeah, this was an interesting match. My opponent, he lost on to Sableye early on, which was obviously not great for him. And there's a point in the game where he was trying to get me to, he was hoping I was going to play the Lost City down, and then he was going to knock out my Manaphy with the Lost City in play, and then try to Kyogre for game. And that was actually, pretty clever. And I just didn't put Lost City in play. And the one time I did, I vacuumed it because I was trying to thin my hand to play around Roxanne. And yeah, I had a turn where I just killed his Dragonite with a boss. I did have to play into the Dragonite 180 attack. So the turn he Dragonited my Charizard, I just bossed up the Cramorant on the bench that he had because I'm not gonna hit the Dragonite for 180 damage. I just lose if I do that. So I bossed out the Cram, took a prize on the Cram. Then he KO'd my my Charizard, and then I went into another Charizard, KO'd. He KO'd me. He still was able to get the Cram back with a Super Rod. KO'd my Zard with Cram, and then I went into another Charizard, and then I bossed the Dragonite, took 2 prizes. And I think when I did the KO, I had 2 prizes left, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I had 2 prizes left after I KO'd his Dragonite. So I decided to take 2 knockouts, and I had Manaphy in play, and there was a turn where he knocked it out with no Lost City in play, obviously. And then I researched, and I was like, I need to get a ball card or a Super Rod so I can guarantee the Manaphy, because I had Pidgeot in. I hit the Rod and the ball card just flat. I didn't even need a Pidgeot, which was actually kind of insane. I did almost throw the game, though. I attached an energy to a Radiant Alakazam on my bench because he Echoing Horned it, and I shouldn't have done that. I actually had energy on Pidgeot, so basically all I had to do was attach twice to Pidgeot, and then just boss for game if he Rock Sand me, which I almost threw the game because of that. So I like actually should have lost. I should have put basically I just attached to Alakazam on the off chance he played a random boss's order in his deck, which Kyogre doesn't usually play boss, but on the off chance there was a boss, I just attached Alakazam so I could retreat it if I really had to, because he could trap Alakazam and then spam Sableye for 2 turns because I already used my rope at that point. But thankfully I didn't get punished. But it could have been punished. Like I should have attached a Pidgeot because like he kills Charizard or whatever, and I just like Roxanne, Pidgeot for boss for game. So it was close, but I did end up winning the League Challenge with the deck. Charizard feels so good when, like, even in the games where I didn't even get to set up, like against Lost Box, where literally my board was Charizard, Entei, Lumineon, the deck still kind of feels good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it is a bit of luck, like how well you can draw. Sometimes you like have to draw a piece so that you can Pidgeot for something else that you need. If you have to Pidgeot for the piece that you wanted to draw, it gets a little awkward. So it's a bit of a lucky deck where you do have to get a little lucky with your draws, but depending on how well you play with the deck and depending on how well you sequence your turns and you play your quick searches, it kind of does it feel like chess, to be honest. Like in the games where I set up Charizard Pidgeot, I'm like just basically you just have to map out how you're going to play the deck going forward. And I thought it was a really cool call first tournament, and I'm kind of glad I get to send off the Obsidian Flames meta with a dub with the Charizard EX deck in a League Challenge. Got me some 15 CP. Makes up for the last couple League Challenges I've been to where I flopped, and then Toronto where I also flopped. So I'm glad I finally got some CP in this format before I send it off. Overall, honestly, the Obsidian Flames meta was fine. I was fine with it. It was not the greatest format ever. I didn't like how there was so many different decks you can play because it just made for like a really hard meta to predict. Like I played Lugia to Toronto, I hit 2 Miraidons, and I hit no Lugias because I was playing Duraludon on my deck. So I was like, yeah, variance is a big factor in the in this format, but it's still like fun. I mean, the variety is nice, but it just feels like you can lose to like just hitting bad matchups and not. There was no deck that really just beat everything, unfortunately. So it's kind of how it was. But the format was fine, and it is nice to be in a new meta. The Paradox Rift meta is looking so good so far. I'm actually last night at the time of recording this, I was at my locals on Friday, yeah, and I ended up going 5-1 with a Zoroark Toolbox deck. So I've been liking the Paradox Rift meta so far, but glad I got to get some CP on the board. Shout out to all my opponents, GG saw them and all that stuff. And yeah, I thought I would do a little mini tournament report here of my League Challenge win, just make up for the lack of like tournament report videos I've done because I didn't do one for Toronto. So I thought I was like, why not do one for the second channel? And I want some second channel content. I've been it's kind of dry right now. There's not that much videos to make right now, so I was like, this is a good opportunity to kind of get some content out. But if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Of course, here we're on the road to 10,000 subs here on the second channel, so subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll see y'all another video here on the second channel soon. Yeah, hope to see y'all later. And yeah, bye bye.